Rosie, I recall, I think it was Eddie Redmayne, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, who played a trans woman in a film called The Danish Girl, where it was about an artist, one of the first people in history, at least known to undergo gender reassignment surgery. And he came out saying later on, I mean, it was a very acclaimed performance. I thought he did so wonderfully. And later on, he came out and actually apologized. He said it was actually a mistake to play a trans character, that he went in with the best intentions, but that he wouldn't have taken the role now. This is the same guy who played the disabled scientist, Stephen Hawking. Mm-hmm. And I think he won an Oscar for it in The Theory of Everything. Do you think what are your opinions of these artists, very established artists who are mainstream actors, who are kind of conforming to something? I mean, do you think this actually hurts the overall art scene?
Well, that's exactly what I'm thinking at the moment, in terms of like the basis of art needs to have some kind of foundation into one can call it truth, or I think in the workspace one would call it honesty. So you come into the workspace knowing already who you are and what you are. And then from that base level that we're all agreed, from there we go into an imaginary world and we try and create fantasies and stories. And I think that we really are looking at the very root basic principles of what the arts are there to do, and what they can say to us, how we can step into other people's shoes, other people's bodies, other people's minds. And it will give us a huge perspective that we would never have if we were only ever using our small lived experience. I think that's one of the wonders and fantasies of where the arts can take us, is to places beyond our norm. So I really worry about this kind of shutting down from the very premise, this idea that we start from a bedrock and then we explore a world from there. It sort of really dismantles any sense of, if we're all performing ourselves all the time, then what then does performance become itself? It feels untrue to me. It feels, and it's really difficult to argue some of this stuff, because so much of one's work as an artist is in the imaginary realm. But where would we be without Dostoevsky? Where would we be? We wouldn't even have that imagination that opens up to some of those. I mean, he created modern psychology, or the psychology of criminology. I mean, where would we be without him making those jumps in his imagination? He didn't have to do it himself to imagine it. So I think there is a threat on the arts that's very existential.
Yeah, I think Eddie Redmayne also was criticized for playing Stephen Hawking. People, a smaller subset, I think, and it wasn't as intense because I think it was a little earlier on. But yeah, people were saying that somebody with that particular disability should have been the person to play it. Doesn't make any sense, because the movie portrays the progression, and you'd need different
exactly.
actors, I guess. But it brings up, I think, to be fair to where people are coming from, I think, is the argument that I hear all the time is that there are so few opportunities for these particular groups of people in the arts. And so when a part comes that is basically tailor-made for them, they're a shoe-in for it. And even those aren't given to them, then they have nothing. That's the argument. And
I would, I was about to say that argument myself. That I would agree with that. I think there was a piece recently in the UK where they made absolutely the biggest efforts to cast the role. I think it was Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, a trans person in a trans role, but the demands of that actual job that need you to sing, act and dance, they spent months and they cast the best person they thought for the job. I suppose I'm coming at it from that perspective that it's very demanding certain roles, particularly, you know, technically in a dance production, that absolutely are completely open to who that role could be played by, but I wouldn't want to be prescriptive right from the start. And it also depends on the perspective of, particularly Virginia Woolf. I was consulting with an LGBT group and with several trans people that work in the arts. And, you know, we were really discussing on deep level and actually sort of looking at Virginia Woolf's sort of the way, why is she doing that? What's she telling us? And what's my interpretation as a choreographer? Or Virginia Woolf is making some observations about Orlando as a man and then how differently Orlando as a woman is treated, although Orlando stays the same. So there was sort of some complicated issues about, well, what are we judging this male and femaleness on? Is it performance or what's happening inside? It wasn't saying it was going to be an easy show to make, but I thought it was asking really interesting questions. And I didn't want to be prescriptive before even auditioning.
That should be the purpose of art. You know, it's asking these kinds of questions in society. And, you know, I just think about kind of the net effect of all of this, because, you know, in a way, these dancers of in your troupe who really care about this issue, it's clear they're very passionate about it. They, you know, really care about the marginalized and trans people, and they want them to be better represented. But in a way, their actions have canceled you, and so have canceled a production that would have explored these questions that could have had a trans dancer. Who knows, right? It's and the world then becomes deprived of this production that you were planning. I mean, obviously now we can talk about what your plans are now, you know, that since you've left the dance company, but I don't think they think about the consequences. It is in a way just all about exacting revenge on wrongthink. You ventured into a realm where you know, you started asking questions or having opinions that were just not tolerated in society.